Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out on Mardi Gras and on Valentine's Eve. I see we have some people decorated in the various holidays. My name is Jen Summers. I'd like to welcome you to the first Dance Talk of 2024 on behalf of our co-artistic directors, Stanton Welch and Julie Kent. I have to say this before we get started. I feel like to be an honest moderator, I need to tell you that I'm so excited about this dance talk because Cinderella is one of my favorite Stanton ballets. There, now you know I'm biased. I love this. And when we were talking about who to have on the panel, I knew immediately who the first person was, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Before we get started, please silence your noisemakers. And if you would like to leave during the talk, if instead of using the door that you came in, if you can use the ones to either side of the seating, it just helps everyone have a more seamless experience. Let's meet our panel. So I think you know all these people, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. Steven Woodgate is one of Houston Ballet's Ballet Masters. Yes, start clapping. He's been in this role for almost 20 years? Are we in the midst of the 20th year, right? Yes. And if you don't know what a ballet master is, it's pretty much the person who has to make all the magic happen. What you get to experience with Steven, a lot of times ballet masters are not on stage, but we're so lucky that often Stanton will create a part with Steven in mind, as he did when he premiered Cinderella in 1997 at the Australian Ballet. So sitting next to me is the original Florinda, one of the stepsisters. And he had a lot of other roles, which he told me, but we're going to focus on that one, at least at the beginning of the talk. And I just think it's so amazing for our dancers and also for all of us. We're going to get to hear about this ballet, but also about the making of it from somebody who was there when it happened. So welcome to Steven. Are you going to be the king this year?
I am.
So you will see him as the king. Next to Steven is Jacquelyn who, yes, please. As Academy Director, I must say, she is a graduate of the Houston Ballet Academy. Yes, I know. One of my favorites was in my early years at Houston Ballet. She was one of my favorites to watch on this stage. So, Jacquelyn joined the company as a corps de ballet member in 2012, and she was promoted to Demi Soloist and then Soloist in the same year, 2016. She's done a bazillion roles in Cinderella, but tonight we're going to focus on she's having her debut as the title character Cinderella. So, yay for Jacquelyn. And next to Jacquelyn is Wolff, whom a lot of you know. Yes, please clap. Jack did some of his training at the Houston Ballet Academy, and he is a native Houstonian. Yes, go ahead and give him some H-Town love. He is a graduate of the JKO School at the American Ballet Theater. He joined the company as an apprentice in 2018. He was promoted to corps de ballet in 2019 and to Demi Soloist in 2022. He's also done lots of roles in Cinderella. And is that true or no?
It's my first.
This is your first Cinderella. Well, congratulations. And I invited him here because he is debuting as Grizabella, Florinda's sister. That was my intention. And then come to find out, he's also debuting as the prince. So it's a big first Cinderella, Jack. Congratulations. So we're going to dive into my questions, and don't worry, I promise I'll leave you time to ask yours too. But I wanted to make sure I started by saying, and this is something I've heard Stanton say, I'm going to say it again. This ballet was created in 1997, and if you do the math, that is almost 30 years ago. I think it's important to say that because I think given the retelling of Cinderella, this different take on the Cinderella that Stanton's version is, it could be seen as a reaction to our current socio-political climate. So I think it's really important for you to know that it's not. This was his vision from 1997, almost 30 years ago. So let's start by looking at the program from 1997. This is one of my favorite slides. If you're a ballet nerd like me, and I know a lot of you are, the designer for Cinderella is a man named Christian Fredrickson, And his archive is available on the World Wide Web. Not all of it, not everything, but there's a big collection of his work. And in that, I think you can see some faces from Australian. Have you seen this, Steven? I'm up at the top, a senior artist, Steven Woodgate, in 1997.
Above Stanton, you might notice.
And then look. And then as a soloist, we see Stanton Welch, our artistic director. And then over to the right, I'm pointing out Demi and Welch, who is Stanton's brother. And I'm correct, Stanton, you're Steven, not Stanton, that he created Dandini on Demi.
He did, absolutely, yes.
And Miranda Coney Barker was the original Cinderella, and she is here coaching Cinderella. Jacquelyn, have you worked with her? Yeah, okay, great. You're gonna be able to tell us the story.
She was at the Australian Ballet School with me. She was a year above me, actually.
Yeah, it's an old home week for you.
I know.
Yeah. And then if we go to the next slide, in fact, if you look to the right side, this is completely not a Cinderella moment, but we have Tim Harbour up in the upper right-hand corner, and if you are a season ticket holder, you know that you're going to get to see his filigree in shadow, as it was originally intended to be, because if you remember, we did it for the first time over at the GRB after Hurricane Harvey. So it's a big Australian Ballet production series in February and March. And then on the left is Stanton's mother, Marilyn Jones, who originated the role of the mother. Is that correct? He created it for her. Not the only role he ever created for her, correct?
No, he did lots of things on her.
Yeah.
Blessed Memory being one of them.
Yeah.
And another one that I can't remember offhand, but he did a couple with her.
But for me, this is we'll talk about it. But the things that make Stanton's Cinderella one of my favorite ballets. One of them is that there's a really important mother character in it. Okay, before Stanton did this version, when you were in Australian Ballet, had you done another version?
No, I hadn't been in them, but the version that the company had done is the version that a lot of people in most of the world had done was the Sir Frederick Ashton version, which he made very famous with Sir Robert Helpman, where he and Sir Robert Helpman played the Ugly Sisters. Mm-hmm. So that was an iconic kind of version, but it was really all about the Ugly Sisters, not so much about Cinderella. Anyway, so he'd done that, and then when so they hadn't done it in 20 years. When I was in the company, I was in the company for about 20 years, and they hadn't done it in all that time. Before that, they had. But when I came here to Houston, the first year I was here, they did Ben Stevenson's Cinderella.
Which is in the vein of Ashton,
similar, very similar, not exactly the same choreography, but very similar in the same format. Right. And so that's the only thing. And I helped to stage some of that. Right. So yes, I'm aware of another version, but I didn't.
But this is the version you've done, yeah.
This is the version I did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you talked about the stepsisters right away because they're amazing in this production, but they're really different. I do love the Ashton one, but they're very campy, and they have their makeup and dancing is meant to show them as ugly and uncoordinated and frumpy, and they're just not. They're not dancers. Well, you know what I mean by that. Yes. They're not. They're not virtuosic dancers.
They're theatrical. It's like a pantomime, more like a pantomime kind of.
Right. But these stepsisters, that's not the case at all. In fact, I think that a lot of you know this, they dance on pointe. When you were cast as Florinda and found out that you were going to be dancing on pointe, what was your reaction?
Well, I've known Stanton since he was 5 years old, so we've known each other forever. And so he knew me very well, and I'd been in a lot of his ballets. And plus David McAllister, who was the first guy that did Grizabella, he was also known him forever. And we got on very, very well. And so there was a connection of funny. We could be funny with each other, and very experienced. I was already 30-something, and so was David. So a lot of theatrical experience with doing roles and acting and everything. So when also dancers muck around, behind the scenes, side stage, in the studio sometimes, and they're always doing other people's roles, always. Sometimes they know other people's roles better than the roles they're supposed to do themselves. But anyway, so of course, we thought it was hysterical. We didn't know whether it was going to be that hard, by the way. We thought it was a little bit of point work, but not that much. And he just wanted to see what we could do. And the thing with guys, and like I'm learning now what I'm teaching these guys, is that there's no fear. Ladies have the fear only because they know it's how it's supposed to be done, and they're very correct, and they want to be absolutely beautiful all the time. He didn't want us to look absolutely beautiful. It was like, give it a go and see what you can do. So of course, in the early rehearsals, because it's funny when you wear pointe shoes for the first day. It's not so funny hour after hour after hour. It's awful. And I found that out on the first dress rehearsal. When you're in the shoes all day, it's awful. But when you're just doing an hour, it's funny. And so I couldn't. So you'll see in the ballet, we never stop running on pointe. Every time we do, it's on pointe. It's never a normal walk because it was funny in an hour to do that until you get on the stage and you never come off pointe and your calf muscles are hurting, your feet are killing you.
You relate, Jacquelyn? Yeah.
Oh, I know, they know. Or they just look at us and roll their eyes at us. So, yeah, we thought it was a wonderful challenge and we couldn't stop laughing. The first pointe class we had, so we hadn't, it was just stuck them on for the first time. We had John Lanchbury, who is the famous orchestrator of ballet music. He was here in Houston many times doing Dracula and his La Fille Margade and his Ramonda and Donkey were all his versions of it. He played the piano for our class, and we had Maina Gilbert, who was our artistic director at the time, teaching his class with all of us. Well, there wasn't that many of us. It was about maybe 10 or maybe 8 or so boys trying to do it. But some guys couldn't do it at all. And it's like there was immediate pain, I can't do that. So, next.
But you did. You passed the test.
We passed the test, yeah.
So he had the intention of. What do you think his motivations were? I know that it's traditional. It's oftentimes the stepsisters are men. But what do you think Stanton's motivations were for that?
He didn't want us to play it as ugly women. He wanted us that the audience is not sure when we first come out. Are these men or women?
Yeah.
And there were actually. When we first came out, when you're all dressed up, we're not doing ugly makeup. We're trying to be as pretty as you can possibly be for what we look like. And so we're trying, and we've got muscular calf muscles, so you can't not look like a guy, really. But the face is where we're trying to be as feminine as possible. The dresses are very ornate, very frilly, and everything's to look as pretty as possible, except that the Florinda character is a large girl, supposed to be a little bit on the porky side, while the other one is very, lovely figure, and
that's you.
And in my yes, and well, the thing is though, she was supposed to, oh, your figure's so beautiful, and I'd go, oh yes, but your face is so beautiful, when really he had the hideous face and I had the, where it's all that kind of joking around.
Yeah.
But I poor Cinderella. We were trying to do all the fouettes like her, and of course David McAllister would try to do more than her, and then I'd have to do it because he's doing it, so I'm not going to be the one that's not going to do it.
So that's how the choreography got so hard, Jeff.
That's how the choreography got hard. That's why we never came off point.
Yeah, when she was trying to get her moment in the sun.
We had to tone it down, didn't we? Actually, what the character's supposed to be, we're not supposed to be as good. And of course, we didn't look as good, but it's funny.
And then, I think another thing that's, it's not just the point work. The stepsisters also do a lot of partnering. I mean, I when I see it, I realize what Stanton has the stepsisters and the stepmother doing with Cinderella would not be really possible.
No, women couldn't probably do it. But I didn't find it so overly difficult. But you'll find out, they haven't worn the costumes yet, but when they get the costumes on with the fat suit and everything else and the wig and everything, that's what was hard with the partnering, because, that dress isn't so bad. But the other one it's frilly, and so it gets caught up. So when you're trying to do this with the legs and everything, when you've got so much costume, the point work wasn't a problem with that so much, it was actually the costume.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I found difficult.
Right.
And you may find difficult when you get there.
And it's sort of the flip, because that's what she's wearing,
right?
Like she's easy breezy when you guys have a lot of material.
Yes, and a lot of undergarments and all of that.
Yeah.
So it's very hot.
Yeah.
Very hot.
And athletic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, you think about what women usually wear in a role with fouettes and such is much less than.
Oh yeah, and they're not wearing a fat suit or anything.
So Stanton drew from multiple sources for his conception of Cinderella, including the Grimm's fairy tale and Perrault. But they're, and in some tellings, they're quite evil, the stepsisters. But they aren't really Florinda and Grizabella.
No.
Will you two talk about who you think your respective characters are?
Well, I'll say what I think it is, and it may not be exactly what Stanton always said, but perhaps what I've given to you a little bit, is that we live in our own little world, and I'm just beautiful. I'm just beautiful, and no one's there to tell me I'm not beautiful. And also the mirror is there, and what the stepmother does is every mirror is covered up because she knows her daughters aren't that attractive. And of course, Grizabella, Jack's character, takes off the thing to look at himself to think I'm just so beautiful. So it's in this little protective world that they live in, and really I think, well, Florinda, I always coach her, is a little bit dim. She's not really sure what's going on. She's just likes clothes and eating, mostly eating, really. And the other one, Grizabella, is a little bit more vindictive, but still, both of them don't have terribly much brains. And the mother really works the whole thing. The only one that's clever is the Cinderella. The others are a bit dopey, really. Yeah.
So you think, so Jack, let's hear your take on Grizabella.
So for Grizabella, I'm trying to play it as girly girl as possible, but also I believe that I'm pretty. I believe that everyone else is below me, but I feel like I have to prove it all the time. Whereas, not to bring up Prince right now, but when I'm doing Prince, I feel like I don't have to prove it. So it's just in a sense that I'm trying to show that I'm prettier than everyone else. I'm knocking other people down. I'm, stealing the spotlight. Or trying to at least. And Florinda just kind of, in my opinion, just follows along. I feel like the older sister that knows what she's doing, knows what she wants, and Florinda's just there eating.
Florinda just follows along.
Yeah.
She hasn't got a brain in her head. She's a bit of an airhead, really. She just mainly likes food and clothes, pretty things.
And boys.
She likes a boy, yeah, but she doesn't really particularly know who.
So do you think Grizabella drives, does she drive the teasing of Cinderella, or the...
I wouldn't necessarily say that she drives it, but she, it's always like a mutual start. Either Cinderella's the first push or Grizabella's the first push.
Mm-hmm.
They know what's coming, and they know how far they can push the limits. But, I mean, what's fascinating to me is that Grizabella knows that she's always going to lose to Cinderella, so why keep trying? You know what I mean?
But siblings. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Jacquelyn, chime in, because I think if the stepsisters are really not as evil as they sometimes are in fairy tales, I also think that Cinderella isn't as demure and pure and chaste as she is in some versions. And I'm hearing Jack say, Grizabella doesn't start it all the time. Cinderella sometimes starts it. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, she's definitely a different kind of Cinderella. I think she's a fighter, and she hasn't had anything handed to her. If anything, everything's been taken away from her. And so she will fight back for the things that, hey, you just took that piece of my mom's dress. I want that back. And she's kind of that girl that's not going to take her annoying sisters pestering her. And yeah, she's a tough girl, she has a little bit more humanness to her. She kind of might have some allergies going on a little bit. She's always rubbing her nose or fixing her dress. And I talked to Miranda, who was the original, and she was talking about how she's a little more human. She's not this perfect ballerina that we all are used to seeing on stage. Stanton's kind of made her, just a little bit more real in that sense.
The ugly sisters are frightened of Cinderella, actually. They're only really strong when the mother's there. Yeah.
Oh, so you think, tell me more about that. Mother...
I think the mother she rules the roost, really, because there's a little moment where all of us get together to dance, and the minute the mother says something, everyone's frightened. Is she going to start an argument or something? They're scared stiff of the mother.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
But you think when Mother's not there, that Cinderella knows that she has the authority? And,
Oh, I think
okay.
so.
Yeah, everyone's nodding. Okay. All right. So what are some other things that Miranda has shared with you about the early days of creating Cinderella?
We talked a lot just about like her spirit, and I think one of the interesting things about playing a character like this is you go back to before you were in the time that you are in playing the role. This Cinderella's lost her mother, and then suddenly this evil woman and her annoying children are coming into the picture, and her dad is kind of aloof, not even like present, and she's doesn't know anything besides her world, and then suddenly she gets to go to this ball and experience all these things, this like that everybody says is the bee's knees, but for me, what Miranda shared with me that I found the most interesting, which is kind of towards the end of the ballet, once she has picked the person that she wants to be with, is she's actually lost both of her parents, and the bravery and the strength in that part of her choosing to continue loving, and after kind of experiencing everything in her life being taken from her, but having the strength to kind of keep fighting for that love and that magic and that happily ever after. So I think that was kind of one of the meaningful things that I was like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, but now I do.
That her toughness is actually shown through her love and her ability to.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, okay, let's transition to her loss. So I think that Cinderella not being meek is one of my favorite things about Stanton Cinderella, but I also really love that there's not a fairy godmother. I really love that she goes to the grave in her tears, which is, I think it's in the Perrault where her tears bring spirits alive, make spirits alive, but it's not her mother. And in this case, it is. I mean, it's not, of course that's who helps her through this. And even if she's not literally there, that she's pulling from that relationship, and she's pulling from the strength that her mother gave her to make these decisions. So do you want to talk about the mother at all, Steven, and what your take is on, I mean, I love it, but,
Oh, no, I like it. I like it too. Rather than just having the usual scene is that they have different girls representing different fairies and things, or autumn, or all these seasons and things, and they do.
It like turns into a different ballet for a little bit.
Yes, it's the usual petit-pas kind of thing where there's a solo after solo and solo. So it doesn't really make the story go forward. It's just a divertisement, which is fine. But in this way, he wanted it to be more. First of all, more dancers, more people getting to do a lot of dancing, but also the mother coming up, so that it's more. The story makes a little bit more sense. So in the very first scene, you see a painting of her mother, and at one point the father comes in and it feels like he's dancing with his wife, his first wife, and so the picture comes alive, and the mother is behind the picture. So anyway, she's the one that comes back up again in the grave scene, and so she'll have all her dearly departed friends come up, and they're the ones that put the dress together, because it wouldn't be just a fairy, this, that. It's something that's at the graveyard with her.
Right.
So I like that, and there's a lot of great dancing with that, so that people get to show off virtuosity and all of that with it creating the story. So while they're dancing around, they're putting a bit of costume on it to make the dress, rather than just a solo, and then the next girl comes out does a solo.
Right. And no pumpkin and no rats.
No pumpkin.
Oh,
No.
yeah.
No, the ghosts carry her along, sort of
Right.
drifts on into the future.
Yeah. I guess there's a meaning. It's not. I mean, it is magical, but it's not just magic. It's something that's like you can imagine that Cinderella conjured it because it's from her.
And you see her in the beginning, and she's in overalls, and doesn't care about her like appearance at all. The people in her life, which are her stepsisters and stepmother, they're kind of not what she wants to be. And then she goes and sees her mother, and her mother kind of transforms her to this beautiful like woman in dress, and she kind of she's still like herself and has her little human parts, but I like that it's the mom who's like, come on, let's get you ready. Like I don't know, there's something like prom about it that I love.
Let me help you with your hair.
Yeah.
And her dress isn't like the normal kind of tutu that they would normally wear in the ballet version. It's a beautiful dress, but it's much different. Everyone else is like the stepsisters. It's a sumptuous, sumptuous. Hers is quite not plain, but it's simple.
Yeah.
Simple
Elegant.
Kind of elegant,
Yes.
yeah. And she still has the sort of short hair and
Yeah.
with sparkles in it.
Pretty in her own way.
Yeah, pretty in her own way.
So I think you two both dance the ghost choreography as well. Are you ghosts? Do you want to talk a little bit about? So Steven was referencing the fact that the music that the mother's ghost friends dance to is in many versions a bunch of fairies from winter, spring, summer, fall. But Stanton sort of run it all together to be one scene of ghosts. But it's not just ballet. Do you want to talk about that choreography at all?
Sure. So we've had Stanton in the studio for the past few days, coaching ghosts specifically, talking about how he envisions each ghost to have its own character or its own aspect or physicality behind it. It can be a ghost that's been dead for 200 years, and then a ghost that died last week. So some might have different energy levels. Or just they move a little differently. But it's very interesting because you have to, you're all mangled up and then ballet, and then you're back to mangled up, and it's fun to find the balance. It's challenging, but it's fun, and to see how your friends portray their ghosts. Neil Burks makes us laugh every single time. It's crazy, but yeah, it's a fun way to carry that story.
Yeah, and I think it matches the music. The music's pretty dark, but then there's kind of this moment of like lightness and humor that comes into, and these ghosts are helping Cinderella, and yeah, it's fun.
Are you saying there's improv in the ghosts?
I would say that there's directed improv. For example, there's a section where we're supposed to be wiping our skin off, right? We're just shedding dead skin. And it's a free-for-all though. You have, it's 22 counts of any body part you want. So there's improv, and you can crawl you can crawl however you want, of course, with standards, but yeah.
Houston Ballet has high standards for
But it's a leaded improv, yeah.
So he's allowing you to bring, he's not saying you, Jack Wolff, are somebody who was dead 150 years and you walk with this specific limp.
Not this time around.
Yeah.
I might be mistaken. In the past, they might have done that? I don't know.
I think if not enough ideas are coming up, then you'll be directed on what maybe you should do. Maybe do this with your arm, or maybe you've got a funny foot or something. So they'll be direct. But otherwise, they're free range to what they want to do. Not the choreography. The choreography with the partner, you've got to do that the way it is. But how you get to the position might be your own way of doing it, like a zombie or something.
When I watch it, I always think it's ballet meets thriller.
Yes,
Exactly.
it is a bit like
Exactly.
That's kind of the vibe. Yeah. All right, well, after we've said that the ghosts bring her to the ball, and so let's go to Act 2, and let's meet the prince. So here's departure number 3. If departure number 1 is Cinderella's, the essence of her character, / also the Cinderella's characters, or not Cinderella, the stepsisters' characters are a little bit different. Number 2 is there's no fairy godmother. Number 3 is the prince isn't the best guy on the planet.
Yeah, the prince isn't the nicest. He's not trying to be outwardly mean, but he's a little childish, and he has always had everything given to him without any work for it whatsoever. And he thinks very highly of himself. I mean, he's the prince. And everyone just is falling for him, and just constantly, I want your attention, I want your attention. And he plays with it. He knows it. He's like, yeah, I know. You want to dance with me. I get it. But he uses that power, and he uses the hold that he has over all the women in the ballet specifically to try to make everyone laugh. But by doing so, he's teasing. For example, he calls Florinda big, and then he invites a girl to dance with him, and he's like, "You, I could never." So it's just he doesn't realize that it's hurts their feelings, though. He's just more focused on, are people smiling about me? Great. You know what I mean? Do I look good? Great. And that's kind of his whole priority.
Yeah, Stanton told me the other day that he's not a jerk. Like that is not, and I know, I kind of look at him sometimes and I think that. So, but that's not the intention.
I think he's just unaware. He'd be, if it was made today, he'd be constantly looking at himself on his phone. He'd be taking photos constantly of himself. We didn't have them 27 years ago, but if it was now, he'd be doing that all the time, and his friends.
Fixing his hair in the phone, like that's
all
what
the
the
time.
teenagers do.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, Jacquelyn? I mean, they've just said what they think about the prince, that he's just unaware and a little bit entitled, is what I think. But what is that? How does that manifest for you as Cinderella or a ball guest? I mean, because you've done that too.
Yeah, I think, he's the very opposite of Cinderella, who's, all the things that she loves have kind of been like taken from her. He's gotten everything his whole life, like on a platter, here you go. So I think her interactions with him, she's kind of like, okay, well, I think this is going to be fun. Everyone says, like, he's the guy you want to dance with. But then in dancing with him, he kind of expects, like, oh, well, I can kiss you. And she's like, no, I don't really want to do that. And kind of like throws her around a little bit. And she's like, I think I'd rather just go to the side and have a nice conversation with a cute guy over there. That's kind of Cinderella. So I think, and towards the end of the ballet, she kind of gives the prince a little bit of how he treated her, and kind of was like, you shoved me around a little bit like this. I don't know if you realized it, but this is what you were doing. So she gives it back to him in the end. But yeah, I think he's just tall, dark, and handsome, and
But maybe nothing inside.
Nothing inside that gives her the butterflies. And I think she's the kind of person that's waiting for the butterflies.
In the opening of Act 2, the whole room is filled with vacuous people who are obsessed with themselves. So the prince is obsessed with himself. His friends, we call them which prince's friends are 4 guys, and the 4 we call vixens. They're friends. They're all obsessed with themselves, and in fact, it opens up with them looking at themselves in the mirror at the back. Till they turn around. Even the king is a bit obsessed with himself too.
I was going to ask you about him. Jack, what did you want to say about the prince?
I was just going to say, I find the relationship between Prince and Cindy to be very interesting, because when Prince is dancing with her, he doesn't even look at her. She's just another girl to him. Like, oh, she's wearing the prettiest dress, great, I'll dance with her, I guess. It's more of he's not wanting to dance with her. But it's supposed to happen, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Like, okay, if she's the prettiest one, I guess this is the one.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course you want to dance with me.
It's kind of a spoof on you think about, for some reason I'm thinking about Swan Lake right now, when the mother says, the queen says, you have to pick one of these brides, or Sleeping Beauty when it's the Rose Adagio and they say you should pick one of these husbands. That's not really what happens in Cinderella. It's more like, because the king, you're not expecting something of him at the ball, right? I mean, it's.
No, Well, I just want you to pick the nicest girl, prettiest one, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think that's as vacuous as it is. Just
right.
You got to marry. Just pick the pretty one. Out of a number.
So talk to us a little bit about the king's relationship to the prince.
Actually, you had a photo of the guy that was doing it. I don't think it's up there anymore.
There it is.
He was the original guy that did the role, not of the prince, but that's me. But the original guy was, in America you had vaudeville and stuff, and in Australia it was called Tivoli. But anyway, it was this guy was part of that vaudeville. He was a dancer, of course, a ballet dancer at one point, but he'd done vaudeville type things. So he was a real theatre person. So I kind of tried to copy what he was like, because he was so funny and so broad humour, and he could be very, very funny side stage too, not just on the stage. So he was a great sense of humour. Anyway, I always think of it, well, I thought of it when his name was Harry Haythorne, was that it was like, he's just the shorter, older version of what the prince was like. So the minute he comes in, it's like, oh, don't stand. Oh, stand. Clap for me, I'm the king. But clap. Like that kind of thing. And so his son is just a very tall, more attractive version of what he was.
Wanting the attention.
Yes. And you see in the third act, the king has absolutely got no power whatsoever. The prince is ordering everyone around. The king's just following him around, just make my son happy.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have moments in the ball or the third act where you, like you're,
yes.
You're not speaking, but you're
Yes.
you're interacting?
We are interacting, yes. I haven't as yet, but I will maybe tomorrow. But yes, we interact a lot. I usually tell him how attractive he is. Oh yes, no, you're fantastic, and give him a mirror or something and saying, I tell you, you're so beautiful.
So you still want the attention, but you're really
I
trying
want
to
the
push him
attention
forward.
too, yes, but I want some of it on my son, yes.
Yeah. So Jack, when you're the prince and, I mean, I know you're thinking about who you are, but literally everybody in the court is interested in you. Like that entrance, talk to us a little bit about what that feels like. And
It's a little, it's very, not overwhelming, but like, you have to literally push your way through a crowd to get to the front of the stage and smile at them, and then you're like, oh, all these people are here for me, I'm gonna go to the back. And then you go to the back, and it's just, you're constantly running around trying to find your own spotlight. And, obviously, you already have your own spotlight wherever you go because everyone on the stage is watching, but it's very busy, and then all of a sudden you ruin the picture that everyone else has created because they're trying to make a, I don't know, what would you call it, maybe like a town, ball, image, and then, oh, well, I'm the best one, so I'm going to go forward and ruin this photo to make me the star. Yeah, so he's, his entrance is very drawing, and, you know exactly who he is just based on his entrance, yeah.
And how does Grizabella feel about him, do you think?
I mean, she's absolutely in love with him.
Is Florinda also, Steven?
Oh, couldn't get enough of him. I think I saw a photo. Yeah, I mean, that's supposed to be one person, but they won't let him go. So all the other girls say, it's my turn to dance with him, but they won't let him go. So they are obsessed with him. The idea of him. They don't know him at all, but it's the idea. Right. And he's pretty. They like pretty things.
Yeah. Back to there's not a lot going on, right? Got
a lot going
on. All right, so Dandini. You want to talk about the moment, Jacquelyn, when you, I think do we have a picture? Yes, there we go.
Yeah,
Jasmine's so great with that.
This is the moment that Cinderella meets Dandini, who is the prince's kind of assistant servant at the ball, and she bumps into him after leaving kind of a dance she didn't really want to be a part of anymore. And she goes to help him pick up his handkerchief, and they lock eyes, and there's this instant butterflies moment. And he offers his handkerchief to her, but she takes, and then she decides, hey, that's actually the first time someone's been really nice to me here at the ball. The vixens have been gossiping with her, and the prince hasn't really looked at her once in the eyes, and this is the first moment where she's like, oh, well, I'd like to dance with him, and she just goes right up to him and asks, hey, let's dance. And it's not till they're interrupted later by the prince that cuts short, but she finds a way to sneak out of the ball and take him aside and have some more alone time.
And I was saying when I was thinking about the fact that Cinderella isn't your pure sweetness and chasteness and demure, maybe he is a little bit. I feel like Dandini might be the sweetest individual in the ballet, almost like what we think of as the Cinderella character in a way.
I think he's kind of that guy that stutters a little bit when you're talking to them. He's like, well, this is like the beginning of their paw starts with her taking off his glasses, and it's kind of this awkward moment, but which he goes into a solo, but he kind of has this shyness that she likes, and he's very real, and he screams honesty, which she loves in him, and yeah, he's very sweet. I think that's correct to say. Yeah, he's the sweetheart of the ballet.
And talk to us about the choreography. I mean, so much of it is has the reckless abandon of love.
Yes.
That we do expect in a Cinderella story.
Yes, and I think that's something that's cool, clever with how Stanton created the choreography for this. The partnering that Cinderella does with the prince is quite staccato and kind of uncomfortable, and as an audience member, you feel that. And then when she's with the person who's giving her the butterflies, you feel that too, and there's this freedom, and the pas de deux are just lovely lifts that go around your head, and the world is spinning, and we're coming together. It kind of has that romantic, whimsical wee. There are times in rehearsal where I've gone wee because of the choreography.
It's very complicated choreography. He did it on his brother, who was a very good partner, and so there's lots of things swinging around on the back, which I hadn't seen before, and so it's really strength. I mean, the strength needed for that's amazing. Coordination for that pas de deux. Both of them is two very difficult ones.
Yeah, I just have to share a little tidbit. The first time they did this was in 2008, and that was before my first summer intensive here. And there was a video on Facebook of Amy Fody and Ian Cassidy doing it, and I just watched the video over and over again. And maybe 14-year-old Jacquelyn practiced some of the look backs in her bedroom by herself. So it's a very full circle moment for me now to be debuting this role and
now they're
working
teaching
with
it.
and working with both of those dancers. So it's very cool.
That's great. That's a fairy tale right there. Yeah, good. Well, okay, Jacquelyn, this isn't your first lead Stanton Ballet role, lead female role. I think I've said to many times in here that one of the sort of the themes that you see in Stanton's work is that he does love to create strong women, or he believes in strong women, and therefore you see them in his ballets. And I wonder, I think that as an observer of his ballets, and I love to find a theme. But do you feel that way as someone who has danced in his ballets?
Yeah, definitely. I've done Mirta, who's kind of your iconic ballet strong woman role, Kill the Men, hard choreography, lots of jumping, lots of dancing. And then one of Stanton's newer creations, Sylvia, I got to perform. And that kind of had a similar powerful woman presence.
That's three powerful women.
Yeah, and she really, is taking the shepherd and in kind of controlling their dynamic a little bit. But I think what's different with Cinderella is her humanity and her strength, and I think where Sylvia's a demigod, and she has this perfection to her and this strength, and of course she can jump and sword fight and do all of these things. I think the unexpectedness from Cinderella is something different, and I find myself asking, well, why is she strong? Why is she fighting back here, and why is she kind of teasing? And I think she's more clever, more human, and more thoughtful with provoking the vixens who have been gossiping the whole time and giving it back to them a little bit sometimes. So yeah, I think she's more complex than some of the other roles I've done, which I'm enjoying diving into.
What are your thoughts on that question about that theme in Stanton's ballets, given that you've been working with him?
Oh, I think he's always like that kind of thing. He grew up with his mum and dad dancers, so he's watched me almost. He watched ballet forever, so he's so used to I suppose in a funny way, the old-fashioned ballet, sometimes the ballerina is the sort of a victim, or waiting for her Prince Charming, or waiting to be kissed by the prince or something like that. So I think he was just, I want to do something different. So since, 90s, since this, he's wanted to do something. He likes those strong things. But he also likes other things too, because the Madame Butterfly, that's totally different. So, I think he likes, not always...
She goes against the grain.
Yes, she does, yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't always like to have the girl just there waiting to be lifted up by the guy. It's thing. But then it's changed. Nice change to have Dandini as being kind of the guy that gets the girl in the end, rather than always. Do you always have to end up with the prettiest person? No, maybe the other person next door is nicer.
Right.
Definitely fun to be strong on stage as a female. We're so lucky that we have that repertoire here that we can do both.
So before I turn it over to the audience, this is undoubtedly not Disney's Cinderella, and I wonder, Disney was a little less of a thing in 1997, but not really. What was the reaction to something so different from the Australian public?
So I think it was interesting. They absolutely loved the fact that the sisters and everything did so much. And not so much in the pantomime way. So we got very good, lots of comments about that, which was, great for me. And they liked the fact that I think some people weren't sure about the ending, because some people do like to have, she goes away with the prince. And this was a little bit different. So
And has like a wedding-y situation.
Yes, and it just doesn't really have a wedgwoody thing. Yeah. What is nice, and what was mentioned, was the fact that everybody gets somebody in the end. There's always somebody there's someone for somebody. Everyone's got someone they could possibly get, and that the ugly sisters weren't thrown into dismal array over here. And everybody gets someone. Even the prince gets somebody. It's not who we thought he was going to get. So
it's a perfect Valentine's ballet.
Yes. So everyone deserves to be happy. That's what he liked, and that went.
So everybody's happily ever after.
Everyone's happily ever after, yeah. And word of mouth. It went very well. Yeah.
What do you think about the ending, Jacquelyn? It isn't a wedding, but what do you think? What do you think is happening there?
I love the ending. I think the pas de deux dance is so just emotional and beautiful, and there's stars, and I think it's kind of she's a little bit not ready to take that jump with him. There's this panel on the ground that has fallen, and she's not ready to take that leap of faith with him. And in the end, she does, and that's her happily ever after. So there's kind of this back and forth, and then, after dancing and feeling one another, they're like, okay, let's do it. And there's such a togetherness in that, and I'm excited to experience that with my colleague Harper. We've done a lot together, so it will be fun to take that leap with him and run into the distance. So I think it's very romantic and fits the music. So that's my take.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's a very Valentine's ending to our conversation. Myra, you want to start? And just a reminder, everybody, when somebody will ask a question, and I'll repeat it into the mic so you can all hear.
I remember when we saw the other Cinderella, one of the earlier ones, that it was a tomboy.
Yeah.
She was really a tomboy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you never said it, those words, that's what I always thought. And I did not think like it.
Yeah. Myra's using the word tomboy to describe Cinderella. What is your feeling? Do you feel like she's a tomboy?
Yeah, I think you can definitely describe her that way. I think for me, and thinking about the whys, I think she just hasn't, she's a tomboy because she hasn't had that presence in her life. So of course she's gonna just wake up with her hair, a little bedheadish.
Like nobody told her to go back up and brush her hair.
So I think that's kind of, you can definitely describe her as that, totally.
And the stepmother's not going to help her. She's down in the kitchen.
Because she wants her to look not less
Do the
good
dishes.
than her daughter. Yeah.
Wash my underpants, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all they want.
Yeah, Jane.
I'm interested in Cinderella's relationship to her birth parents. Her mother who's died and who comes back to her. Her father who's been manipulated by the stepmother and egged on by the two stepsisters. And there's an undercurrent of tragedy in all of that, which I think feeds into Cinderella's humanity and gives her the capacity to understand pain and loss. And I think that's one of the things that gives her, that's what I remember seeing in the previous versions of
So, Jean, it was beautiful. I should have given her the mic. The identifying, so wanting to know more about the relationship between Cinderella and her birth parents, that there's an undercurrent of tragedy because of the loss of her mother and also essentially the loss of her father, who is subsumed by the stepmother and stepsisters. Who wants to speak about that? I mean, and how do you use that, I guess?
So I think her mom, like she meets her mom in the graveyard, and when she comes alive, and her mom kind of explains to her, look, your dad is, has alcohol and poison, and he's being manipulated by the evil stepmother, and this is why he hasn't been there for you. This is the why. And I think in other scenes later on throughout the ballet, you can see their love for one another, the mother and the father. And I think that's why at the ball, Cinderella is looking for the butterflies. She sees, she wants the love that her parents had. And I think that's really what she's looking for and why she doesn't choose the prince, because it's not that same feeling. And there's even things choreographically that you'll see the parents do that she will later do with Dandini, who kind of replicates that feeling for her and what she's looking for. So yeah,
That's a nice little tidbit to look for.
Yeah.
Great. What else?
Yeah.
I was interested in because it's so changed, and all the little girls come dressed in their little, and are they not going to be disappointed?
Oh, the question is about, if you hear the word Cinderella, you might show up in a blue Disney costume, and maybe would you be disappointed in that? Well,
I certainly hope not.
yeah.
But
As
the
a mother
music
of
is
one
all
that
there, the costumes are all there. It's a little bit different at the end in that rather than the
she's in a blue dress.
she's in a beautiful dress, yes. It's just not a tutu, which is what, But I don't think they'd be disappointed. I mean, it's funny. There's lots of dancing, and the pas de deux are sublime. I think better than sometimes the traditional pas de deux for this, because it's not as ornamented as a traditional, which we do when we do Sleeping Beauty, because they have to be. But in this one, it's got more freedom to it, more different throws, different lifts. I think it shows absolute love and abandonment, I think.
And she's a great role model, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, she wears beautiful clothes. It's not a tutu. And she's a strong, I mean, I did take, she's old now, but I took my child to see this, and I feel like proud. I think a 21st century girl is going to relate to this Cinderella. This is what we expect of our girls now, is to stand up and use their voice and be heard. Cece.
I would say when we first did it, in answer to that question, we got a lot of negative responses about how dare you,
Right.
she didn't get the prince.
Yeah.
So there were disappointed people.
Yeah, I mean, people if you didn't hear Cece, I mean, that when we first premiered it here, there's an expectation of one thing and not the other, and then of course Cinderella should end up with the prince. I mean, I'd like to think we're past that as a culture, but I think that's up to the parents to help the kids interpret what they're seeing.
Well, it's not Nutcracker. I mean, if you
Yeah.
take the kids to Nutcracker, you're going to see the same thing all the time. This is just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And, I mean, really, most of the things we do here are very, very traditional, and which I like. I'm not saying I love traditional things. Sleeping Beauty is and Giselle's one of my favourite things, plus one late. But we do a lot of different things that push the boundaries a little bit, but nothing like what they do in Europe. I mean, I haven't seen a Cinderella that's the normal Cinderella for years.
Yeah, right.
That Ashton one is really, haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, I think people like to do different things with that, because the music's also not, Prokofiev music is quite complicated.
Yeah, and it's
And
contemporary sounding.
It's not Tchaikovsky, who I love, but
Yeah.
it's not Tchaikovsky, which Petipa made him do certain things to. This is quite different, this music, and it can be open to many interpretations because of the music, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw another hand. Yes.
Well, I was going to agree with that, because I think it creates an opportunity to talk with the
Yeah, she's saying that it's an opportunity if it's not what you, if the ending isn't what you expected, it's an opportunity to talk to not just young girls, just people in general about what, about choosing your own ending, right? I mean, I feel like that's what she's doing, right? She, she could have gotten the prince. She definitely could have.
She gets the best person in the end.
She gets the best person, yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the things you talk about with kids is that it's a development of character. You're not talking about who gets the prettiest dress and who gets the fanciest car. You're talking about who gets the person whose innate goodness is what you want to have in your own life.
Right. Jean's giving talking points to anybody who's ballet accompaniment. The people who are going to the ballet need some talking points. Is that it's not about what you look like and what car you drive. It's about the content of your character. So I think that's a beautiful moral, and it's a thread in a lot of
Modern.
children's art and modern. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think back then, Cece, maybe there was a different expectation, but I can't imagine with all the things that culture is putting out there now for kids that it would be problematic.
I think they were so used to, because I was used to it too, the Ben's version and the Ashton version, and it's, that's the typical way it was. So I think it was a bit of a shock.
Change is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made brief references to the music. Could you expand a little on the music point of view?
Let's talk a little bit more about the
Prokofiev.
music. Yeah.
Oh, I should have done some more research on it then. But, well, it's one of the main classical choreographers that a lot of people use, Romeo and Juliet being probably one of his most famous, but certainly Cinderella as well. And it has a kind of a dark feel to it, this score. And so initially a lot of dancers, when it was first done in Russia, not the dancers so much, I think the choreographers didn't really like some of his music because they were so used to Minkus, all the other, Drigo, all these other composers, and Tchaikovsky, of course, from doing all those typical things that were asked. And this is so very different. And so it was really ahead of its time, actually. But it's such the pianists that we have here find it such a challenge because it's such difficult music. It's brilliant. It's got such counterpoint to it, and time signature's a little bit different. And even the waltz, which is a waltz, has a different feel to it. There's always a counter rhythm to it. So it's a spectacular score. And the other thing, Stanton loves to use all the music. So he never cuts. There might be some little cuts. I don't think there is a cut in this though. But he sometimes uses little cuts in it, which most people do. But he actually loves to use everything that was written for the reason. Or why was that reason? Oh, that was a front cloth thing. Oh, well, we'll do that. So.
And the score has. I mean, it was written for the ballet. It wasn't like some of the things we do where the music is compiled and make a ballet out of it. I mean, he worked to create a ballet. Each of the tracks, essentially, not that he called them that, but say that it's the orange dance the shawl dance, or it was pretty specific. There's a what Prokofiev's intention is pretty clear, I think.
Yes. Sometimes we have Prokofiev, because I was talking about Romeo and Juliet actually when we did that, there are marks for repeats. And often, and I'd ask our Catherine Siscon, who's our sort of major piano player here, she said, well, I often did that because it was to give the choreographer, well, you can use that or you can cut that, but you don't have to do that again. No, Stanton loves you. If it was written, we'd like to do it. So that's, sometimes you go to the theatre and you hear famous music, like you hear sometimes Swan Lake, and they cut it in the most awful spots, and so it doesn't flow correctly into the new phrase. I did a Nutcracker where the Act 2, the character dances were all in the wrong order, and so they weren't in the right key. Well, we never do that here with Stanton and Amano. It always has to be in the right key, and it flows beautifully from one thing to the next.
What I love about this score is that it's a little unpredictable, in my opinion. It's really hard to count as a dancer, and I feel like it matches the story perfectly because this Cinderella is unpredictable. And so it's easy to watch and understand exactly what's happening simply because of what you're hearing as well. There'll be a big interruption out of nowhere, and that'll start a fight between Prince and Dandini. Or all of a sudden everyone freezes on stage, and then that's when Cinderella is longing for Dandini instead of the prince. I find it very fascinating in the way that Stanton has used it. I think is really genius, actually. Yeah, so I think the score is great as well. Yeah.
All right, we have time for one more. Yeah.
Stephen, have you been training anybody to become a ballet master?
The question is.
All the skills that you've developed over the years.
The question is Steven, in addition to training dancers, training anybody to be a ballet master?
No, I haven't specifically, but we do have some people come in and out and do a few things. And it's funny, I always feel like I can still learn more from other people. Everyone has a different way of doing things. We have a different way of maybe writing out the ballets. I use a sort of a combination of Benish notation and handwriting, while other people just do handwriting, and some people don't do anything. They just try to learn it when they get at home, and then they come in and try and learn it off by heart. So everything's a little bit different. It's something you learn on the job, actually. I remember when I first got here, I was thinking to myself, I had all my papers from Benish notation that I get from the Australian Ballet School, 3 years of it, tons of paper like this. When in my spare time, I'm going to look at all those and reteach myself how to do it perfectly. And of course, I got here and I taught class every other day. I used to teach here and at the school, plus do all these rehearsals and finish at 6:45. I just couldn't do it. And then you had to go home and try to write out the ballet that you were learning or going to be learning soon. So I didn't really have any time to reteach myself how to do it absolutely correctly. It's a difficult job to do, and not everyone is absolutely right for it. You've got to have the right, and I'm not saying I was perfect for it either, but you have to have the right temperament, because everybody, you're dealing with 50 or 60 different personalities, plus the personalities of whoever might be staging something that you're working with, and that's always complicated. And then even the piano players, I mean, they have their issues, and then we've got to make sure that works all well. You've got to be like this most of the time, and it's hard to be like that all the time. You can't please everybody all the time. And then, whatever drama you had the night before at that 6 o'clock rehearsal, you've got to forget about it, and the next day it's got to be fresh and everything's fine again. I find that hard, and that's what people find hard to do. So Amy's been doing it for a while now, but Ian's somewhat new, and they never quite realise the job until you're in the job. All the dancers think, oh, well, I'd be so much better at this. I'm not saying they say this, but you think that as a dancer. I don't know, why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? I'd do that so much better. And then you get to do the job, it's like, well, you realise there was 5 other reasons that the dancers didn't know about is why it had to be like that. It's a difficult job, and you have to really want to do it. You have no hours, you have no spare time, and if you're in the show, then you have even less time because you're taught it and you're in the show, and while everyone else is gone, you're still taking your makeup off.
But Steven has like notebooks for each ballet that we do of notations. He's notoriously quick at when we ask a question, like, was it this arm or this arm? And he can just look down.
I just have to look it up. I can't remember this is what I say all the time. I can't remember everyone's role off the top of my head, so I have to look it up. I think it's this.
Whereas, today someone might look at a video, like he has everything like written down and is such like a perfectionist in his notes. Like he's really skilled at that. And
the only reason why I don't always look at the video is because videos which are a good overall view, that show could be wrong. Or the timing could be wrong.
Someone was feeling it differently.
Yes, and then even today there's a rehearsal and someone did do the right arm. Well, if that was filmed, now they'll think that's the arm and it's not the arm. So I have to go back and say, this is what it is, can you please do it like this? And then you hopefully get it. But as long as you have it written down, you know, well, this is the way I'm going to teach it. It's not going to change
Even
for the next time.
It doesn't happen in the moment.
Yeah.
You taught it right.
Hopefully.
Very good.
Well, I want to thank our panel, and what an amazing group of artists. And I know you'll all enjoy seeing Cinderella, and I would recommend seeing it more than once because we have 3 Cinderellas and 3 Dandinis and 4 Cinderellas, and that's what I meant to say. 4 Cinderellas and 4 Dandinis and 4 princes, and a lot of stepsisters, it sounds like maybe. So, and I think that's the beautiful thing about us getting to seeing live theater is that even though these 3 have given us their insight into each of those characters, everybody will bring themselves to those roles. So we'll see you at the Wortham for a Cinderella and then Bespoke. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with a Bespoke dance talk. Thank you so much for coming out. Happy Mardi Gras. Happy Valentine's Day.